Hey guys, welcome back to another Vanguard video. Today we're here talking about the Frieren collab again from DZ-BT11. Just a reminder that these are Keter Sanctuary cards with the Frieren's Beyond Journey and Designation collab. So here we have first Class Mage Fern, and this brings a really interesting Vanguard design to standard that basically mimics the Merciless Dragon from Premium, as well as the V Beast Deity effects, where you get to attack with your Vanguard during the main phase. So continuous Vanguard circle during your turn, all your front row units get power plus 5k for every 2 Zoltraaks in your bind zone. Zoltraak is one of the 8 orders you can play. Normally you can only play 4 of a card, but the card says you can play 8. So it's a card that basically retires and gives power to your van. So you're going to aim to play it every turn to scale up your front row. Then the second skill is the Auto Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, when you play the order Zoltraak, you cost counterblast 1, stand this unit, it attacks your opponent's Vanguard, and its drive becomes 0 until end of battle. At the end of that battle, you stand this unit. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater though, its drive becomes 1 instead of 0. And it also notes you cannot boost for that attack. So you essentially get to do 3 drives once your opponent's on grade 3, and you're doing 5 attacks if you're playing the grade 2 Stark, which can restand on the first battle of the battle phase. So essentially you swing Van, restand it during the main phase, then during battle phase you'll swing Stark on side, restand it, swing Van, and then you'll have your 2 rears on side swinging, so essentially 5 attacks. Then the third skill of Fern is the Act on Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, you discard a card from your hand. You look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 grade 2 or less Frieren Beyond Journey's End with either Frieren, Stark, Sign, Yubel, Land, or Heiter in its card name, basically any of the mages. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. We got these from the card of the day, and they're essentially like anti-Ava cards, anti-meta for stunning, sealing intercept, stuff like that. So basically very specific utility tech, and really cool because Keter has a lot of really good synergy with this card, such as the Nebula Knight order. We have the grade 2 that was played in Amorta, as well as, I believe, it was Youthberg as well, that, you Soul Blast one to call. So there's a lot of really great ditch fodder in Keter Sanctuary. And, the deck has just a lot of generics it can work with as well, including the T-Fault Frieren we got, because you can add that off the other card, Heiter, which we'll look at later. And, of course, you have Surgeon, a lot of other generics you can work with, Valtrosa, the pile goes on and on and on. So your order is basically taken up by Zoltraak to be played every turn. But, of course, Surgeon, the good Keter stuff will always just make these decks very playable. 5 attacks is really good, and a main phase attack I think is very interesting because we have no Nova Grappler encounter, at all. We don't even have a Victor Stride deck set either. Maybe we'll get that this year, who knows, but yeah, it's just crazy because we have no Nova encounters at all. The closest thing we have, it really is Die Kaiser, like Dimension Police, but that's really not the same thing as Nova Grapplers. So, I hope we do eventually get a Beast Deity encounter or something in English, eventually, or, in JP first, and then it will come to English. But I think this is a really cool drive check design, during main phase attack. You'll never really see this anywhere else except for in Premium, where you do want those main phase attacks because, Hanali and other things exist. But yeah, really, really cool interaction, and, being able to just ditch a card, deck thin, and of course, having that extra drive. It's essentially a drive plus 1, you can think of it, but you're doing an attack during main phase. And of course, once you play Zoltraak, you're kind of scaling up like a Crest deck, just nowhere near as fast as a Stashion, but you'll basically be playing a Zoltraak every turn. And of course, you have, good cards such as Obligatory Dragon or Obligatory Dragon that can search your orders out of deck to grab them. And of course, a lot of the Frieren cards also add normal orders as well as your Rideline. So I want to talk about Zoltraak next, but really, really great card design. I really like Fern. She basically in the show is a very aggro mage that just spams a lot of attacks, but is very talented. So I think this is very truthful to like the character itself. And, kind of brings Nova Grapplers to Keter, which I think is super fun. So I will definitely build this if it comes out. I think all of the Frieren Vanguards are really, really fun. Even Frieren herself. It does look like Fern and Stark are a little bit better because they do get less utility early game, but you can supplement that with Keter generics. And they also do 5 attacks, where it looks like Frieren is only doing 4 so far. So yeah, that pretty much does it. Let's move on to the next card. So the next card is Zoltraak, which is the basically attack spell that Fern spams. So continuous, you can have up to 8 Zoltraak in your deck. So eventually, if you do play all 8, you'll get plus 20 to your front row, not including Persona Ride or anything else, which is pretty nice. Because every 2, you're getting that plus 5 to your front row from the Fern Vanguard skill. Then this card can be played from drop, so easy ditch fodder as well. If you have a Frieren Beyond Journey's End, Vanguard with Fern its card, and you play this cost with Energy Blast 1. So you don't have to worry too much about the energy cost, like Frieren's Grimoires are all E2. This, you won't really have too much of an energy conflict, and of course you do have other rears that do, such as Sign, that energy charge 3, so not too much of a problem. You bind this card, so it sets up for Fern scaling. You choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. If either you did not retire a card or your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you choose one of your Vanguards and it gets +5 until end of turn. Plus 5k in standard is really annoying to guard. Trust me, like with list of Rideline being 15, you know, even like a 13k Vanguard on grade 1 turn going second is annoying to guard. You can't drop a 15 and say OT pass. It's really annoying. So this card is really nice. It's also retire every turn, so your opponent is losing like resources very early, whether they aggro you or not. You know, if they didn't aggro, you know, you get that free 5k to Vanguard, and if they did aggro, you get to choose one of the rears and just pop it off just like that. And of course you can play this turn 1 as well. So if they did try to play a rear in the back row, let's say, I don't know, for like the Bruce Rideline to shove a rear into Soul for the grade 2 on ride up, you can just snipe that and boom, they don't have a rear anymore to shove to Soul, which I think is hilarious. So honestly, really nice card. Retire every turn. Stark's order is basically the on hit, which we'll get to after we talk about the Vanguard. But yeah, 8 basically, you know, retire spam orders that you're playing every turn. And of course, you know, playing this will set up, you know, Surga and other stuff because it is a normal order, as well as Stark's ability for the grade 2 restander to call it back from drop, the Combine Rusher effect. So honestly, Zoltraak is a lot better than I thought. It does read very simple, it might seem very underwhelming, but do not underestimate it. It will add value throughout your game. And of course, you know, Keter generics will supplement your hand very easily. So before we get to the Rideline that Stark and Fern basically share, I want to talk about the Heiter rearguard that we got. So this is the priest character that we got from Fern's, who's basically, you know, Fern's mentor that, you know, was part of Frieren's party. So auto, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if you have a Frieren beyond Journeys and Vanguard with Fern its card name, so again, it's not usable with Stark or Frieren, you cost counterblast 1, check the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 Frieren beyond Journey and unit card with Frieren its card name from among them, reveal it, put into your hand, shuffle your deck. If you do not reveal a card, you countercharge 1. The other Frieren card is basically, you know, looking for your normal orders, which is more consistency for, you know, finding more Zoltraaks, because you do want to get them into drop and, you know, get your order played every turn, keep retiring your opponent's board, and, you know, teeth fault every turn, make board, go, beat them in. And then, of course, being able to countercharge 1 on whiff is really nice. A lot of cards don't do that for whiffing in standard, so good card design there. And the grade 1 Frieren that does grab the normal orders also buffs Stark when it swings unboosted, so it will make a little bit better numbers, especially when you count Persona Ride and Fern's plus 5k to the front row for the every 2 Zoltraaks. So honestly, pretty good card. I think Fern will definitely want to play a few of this. I think it really depends on how many Keter generics you do want to shove into the deck, but this being able to grab Teeth Fault off the top 7 is really good. Of course, you have to obviously be playing the Frieren Teeth Fault because it needs to have the correct name. But, you know, Fern does look very strong in terms of just being able to grab Frieren's rears and do really well. And of course, this isn't counting, again, Surgon, the, you know, Fern that we got earlier, the grade 2 one that's just on place, EB or CB1 draw 1. So a lot of early game supplement, a lot of easy early game, which is very important in standard right now to just rush down your opponent. You basically just make a board, do your usual Keter stuff, and then as soon as you hit turn 3, you're doing 5 attacks. And if you went second, you're doing 3 drives essentially because you get that main phase swing and that 1 single drive. So very strong. It's also pretty easy, you know, when you're superior calling so much, whether that be off Teeth Fault, Nebula Order, Valtrosa, whatever, to find your really important pieces and rears out of your deck to, you know, just deck them, increase your chance for triggers, and of course find your pieces to do those 5 attacks. You know, getting Stark out is pretty easily. You also have Fern skilled as well to check top 7. So Fern definitely looks like the arguably best one so far, maybe besides Stark. Frieren looks a little bit lacking, unfortunately, because we didn't get a way to enable that 5th attack. Technically, there are ways in Keter, like this random grade 3 that you can CB2 restand. So, you know, technically there are ways in Keter to enable a 5th attack for Frieren, but most of the time you are supplementing to Dectin off the Grimoire and probably have a really good early game. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that Heiter is just a very good rear all around. Alright, now to quickly cover the Rideline before we get to Stark, because I think Stark is actually pretty interesting, even though he was quite disappointing, I'll be honest, when I did see the reveal. So first off, we have the starter, Journey to Understand People Frieren. This is important basically for the Stark and Frieren Rideline, because you're not playing Himmel as the starter, but, you know, usual, you wrote upon, if you went second, draw 1. Then we have Master and People, Frieren and Fern. Auto, when placed by writing from Journey to Understand People Frieren, you check the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 Frieren Beyond Journeys and normal orders from among them, reveal them, put into your hand. Again, you're playing 8 of the orders, whether you're playing Fern or Stark, of their respective normal orders. So pretty good chance of hitting, you know, not necessarily like the 14, 16 trick or treats, whatever, Fennel, but still pretty good chances of hitting, and it's basically costless for the Rideline. And the grade 2 is basically the same. You have New Daily Life, Stark, and Frieren and Fern. Auto, when placed by writing from Master and People Frieren and Fern, you check the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 Frieren Beyond Journey's End, normal orders from among them, reveal them, put into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So pretty good ways to just free check top 7, find as many as you can. You know, at best this is +2, and then you have more pitch fodder and just more ways to just boom shoot your opponent's board or have on hit pressure for Stark. Alright, here is Village Hero Stark. I'll be honest, like I said before, when I first read this reveal, it was a little disappointing, but after thinking about it a little bit more and looking at what Keter has to offer, it is actually pretty unique in terms of it's combining just a bunch of different archetypes together. Kind of like Fern, where you're stealing other archetypes, grabbing Yoink, Beast Deity V things. But yeah, Stark is really interesting. He is very simple, I'll give it that, but still kind of unique in the sense that we don't really have anything exactly like him. The closest thing to him is Raziel, essentially. But anyways, we have continuous Vanguard Circle. If your opponent's Vanguards grade 3 or greater, all your front row rear guards get power +5, also active on your opponent's turn. So kind of unfortunate Stark isn't an 18k Vanguard because, it's only powering up rears, but it's nice to buff up your rears so your opponent basically can't swing into them, or it would cost them a lot more power. Then auto Vanguard Circle once per turn. When it attacks, you counter +1, choose one of your rear guards and stand it. So basically what you'll have to do with the grade 2 Stark is swing it on the first battle, it'll stand, then you'll swing the rear on the other side, then swing Van, restand. So you do get 5 attacks, it's not that bad. So, at least you're not a 4 attack like Frieren before. And, getting Stark out with Keter Pile or whatever Keter generics, or even just, being budget and playing the Frieren cards will be very, very easy. Then the third skill is auto Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, when this unit card is attacked, you discard a card from your hand, and this unit gets power +15 until end of battle. So kind of similar to Bav's effect, where you have to activate this during the attack step before the guard step, but you basically get to supplement and exchange any 0 shield or 5k shield in your hand into 15k, which is actually not bad. I do wish it was free, or there was a way to do like Soul Blast 1, become a 20k shield like the Bav shield, but I guess they wanted to nerf it a bit. But honestly, after thinking the skill a little bit more, there are a lot of scenarios if you played a lot of Standard where you have a lot of just 5 or 0 shields in your hand. Like, it is just bound to happen, especially if you're playing a deck that does play a lot of 0 shields, or you just got unlucky and don't have any triggers in your hand. So this is really nice. It is once per turn, so again, you only get to proc it once, so you want to be careful with it. Usually you'll proc these skills for these smaller swings that are easier to guard, or save them for when you have to 2 or 3 to pass your opponent's Vanguard. But yeah, being able to supplement anything in your hand into a 15k shield is really nice, even if it is once per turn. So kind of a little bit defensive utility, but you're also doing 5 attacks like Raziel. And his last skill is kind of like a special divine skill. So auto Vanguard Circle, when your damage check reveals a Frieren Beyond Journey's End with Stark in its card name. So you can be playing, 3 main deck Persona Rides, as well as the 4 grade 2 Starks, or Dragon Slaying Swing, which is his order you can play 8 of. So essentially you have 8 plus 7, so you have 15 cards in your deck that you can heal from. If there are 5 or more cards in your damage zone, once you reveal, the following cards we just talked about for the damage check, you choose a card from your damage zone and heal it. And then you cannot heal by your Vanguard's ability until the end of this fight. So it is essentially a divine skill, but it's really, really funnily worded, because if you're fighting Greedon, you can still heal, because it doesn't check your opponent's damage being, equal to, or, less damage. Like, if you're at, going to 6 damage, your opponent's at 7, you'll still get to heal off this effect, which is hilarious. Raziel is also the same because it specifies, at 5 or more damage, like basically when you take the 6 damage, but I just think that's hilarious. So yeah, Stark is really weird. He's basically Raziel, but a little bit worse because you don't have guard restrict, but there's a lot of really, really early game that you can easily do with the Frieren cards and with Keter Pile that honestly I think he'll still be playable and be really unique. I would not be surprised if we saw a lot of team results with this, because I think, a lot of people don't know what collabs deck do, so that I think that's a big thing in Vanguard at least, where people will just get completely thrown off their game because they've never seen this deck before, as well as it just being able to do a lot of really easy aggro, like Stark comes back for free, you'll throw in 4 Surgaion, you'll throw in whatever Keter card can just make a board turn 2 and afterwards, and just rush down your opponent while also building up your hand. Of course, you can play Cocoa to stack deck, you can of course play Teethful to make a board, get plus 10k on attack if your opponent's grade 3 gritty, 4 more rears. It's so easy with Keter to just have an early game and rush down your opponent. So I think because of that, these decks will still do very well, or at least well enough to the point that they're rogue decks that can steal games. And again, 5 attacks is still not to be underestimated. You get pretty good buffs. On Persona Ride, you're essentially giving 15 to your rears, not counting any other effects, or those rears gaining additional power, like the grade 2 rear Stark being a 10k shield, 10k beater. And of course, that once per game divine skill has actually a pretty decent chance of going off, because you're going to play the 4 Stark anyways to get the 5 attacks. You're going to be playing the 3 Persona Rides, and of course you're going to be playing Dragon Slaying Swing at 8 basically. And you're also going to be playing 8 of the order anyways, because you want to see that on-hit pressure and power early for the deck. So I actually think Stark, at first when I read him, again, I was pretty disappointed. But after thinking about it a little bit more and seeing the other reveals and thinking about it a little bit more again, it's honestly not bad. It's playable. I mean, it's Keter Pile, so of course it's playable. But yeah, basically these decks are pretty unique. I do think Stark does look a little bit behind Fern just because Fern gets that extra drive check and technically better scaling when you find the Zoltraaks. But you know, both of them are still quite good. They're still doing 5 attacks, doing good stuff. I think Stark is interesting because you do have the divine skill, so you're a little bit more tanky compared to Fern, where you might have to play, you know, other things to try and supplement more defense for the deck. But yeah, you know, Keter also has like really random stuff like the heal order that we saw in Love and Berry, where you pitch a hand card and put all of your heals from drop into the Guardian Circle, essentially supplementing another PG in your deck. I know I'm saying supplementing a lot, but it essentially acts as another PG in your deck, which is really, really strong. Yotsuba also played this because it is really, really strong to stall the game as well. So trust me, Keter has a lot of things. If you play the deck, if you play the nation, you know Keter Pal has so much stuff to work with. And if you don't, trust me, you'll find out once people cook lists. So yeah, honestly, I think Stark and Fern look really good. And there is one more card to talk about, which is his mentor. Let me find it. Where is it? Oh, we have his mentor, Quiet Warrior Ison, which has the continuous regret circle. It can't be retired if you have Fern Beyond Journey Vanguard. Then act in back row center. If you have a Great Through Greater Fern Johnny. If you have Great Through Greater, Frieren Beyond Journey's End, Vanguard with Stark, you cost rest this unit, choosing your Vanguards to end a turn, it gets +5. Then when this unit would attack, it battles all of your opponent's unit in a column, and you may soul charge 1. So basically more blast token hate, which is hilarious, but you get to swing at the booster behind Vanguard. And then the last thing to talk about is Dragon Slaying Swing. So compared to Zoltraak, this is a grade 2, not a grade 1, so you can't play at turn 1. But it can also be played from drop, and it's basically free. It doesn't use any energy. So play this if you have Frieren Beyond Journeys and Vanguard with Stark in its card name, and it is a normal order, so it will proc, you know, Sargon, it'll proc Stark coming back from drop. You bind this card, choose one of your Vanguards until end of turn. It gets +5k and auto Vanguard Circle. When its unit attack hits, you may draw a card. If your opponent's Vanguard's Great Through Greater, it gets +10 instead of +5. So on hit pressure, +5k to Vanguard, very annoying, hard to guard. So honestly, not a bad card. I thought this card, when I read it first, I'm like, really? This is all it does? Like, shouldn't it be more broken? But the point of these orders is that you're thinning them every turn and playing them out. And on hit pressure, basically from turn 2 onwards, is kind of annoying because if your opponent lets you hit, you know, they 1 to 2 to pass, you know, you get a free draw. Like, free draw is free draw. Not bad. And of course, that +10 is very nice because your Vanguard column isn't that big. You're trying to supplement your rear columns more and probably play like fronts and crits. So it's kind of hard to say for now how good these decks will be, but I think with Keter Pal, they'll be very much playable. If you do want to play budget in JP and not have to play the expensive Keter cards, you can most definitely just play the Free and Beyond Journey cards and just get your normal triggers, and you'll do perfectly fine with the deck. Like, it is quite playable. Maybe not necessarily competitive, but you'll still be able to do quite well with it at a locals, I think, if you know what you're doing. So, you know, pretty cool stuff overall. I really do like the designs. I think Stark is a little bit bland because, you know, we've basically seen this with Rezael. Rezael's basically just calling him drop instead of, you know, like restanding things. And Fern is really interesting because it's Nova Grappler mechanics in basically standard that we've never gotten before, and very unique main phase swing. So I'm quite excited. If we do get these cards in English, I will definitely be building them. If we do get it, usually the pattern, I commented it last time, but basically the pattern is we usually get it 1 or 2 sets later if we do get it in English. Not guaranteed, but we do know that there have been English sets for Weiss, and we know Bushiroad holds that rights to, you know, this property. So very likely it will come to English, but you know, don't want to get people's hopes up because we really have no information of if it will come or not. Next Tuesday is Absolute Zero. We have cards for Sagita as well as Clarissa. So, you know, Ernest correct. Shirley, new rear, something insane, copium. And we also have, I also wanted to mention this as well. We have EXCs, so special signed cards. Not necessarily signed from the VAs, but really nice high rarity cards for Fern, Stark, and Frieren if you do want those, and they do look very nice. So do grab them if you do really like the characters in JP. And the last thing I wanted to mention is the usage rates from the post-Bav list. To nobody's surprise, we have Alpha Knights being quite the highest, taking up a decent amount of the pie chart. Then we have Heartluru, Bav, Vice Ruger, and some other rogue decks like Prison. I'm surprised Leonorn isn't up here, but you know, Leonorn wasn't out yet for this. So I'm expecting Leonorn and Prison to be probably somewhere between Bav and Heartluru. Question mark is where I would put it. Maybe I think Prison will be popular first just because people want to play the newest thing. They want to play the anti-meta. You can play Prison damage deny or kind of just go face, but you know, if you don't find your draw cards, you do run out of resources pretty fast, especially if you get aggroed really fast. So you know, we'll see. Some people are hyping up Prison pretty hard. We'll just have to wait and see for results, but this is basically post ban list before DZ set 11 releases. I forgot what region this is, but maybe I'll add a note later. So thank you guys so much for watching. That is pretty much it for the Frieren reveals. This video has been a little bit long. Just kind of wanted to go over the cards, give a full explanation, you know, the usual, kind of get some more hype for Frieren because I'm personally looking forward to it. And I think it's quite interesting to see that the Vanguard team does put, it feels like, a lot more effort into the collab Vanguards than the actual Vanguards sometimes, because they kind of want to like balance how they feel, you know, the meta is, and, you know, how, you know, out of bounds basically the Vanguards are. But yeah, that's enough ranting from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, of course, as the usual, like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you in another video.